got the odometer in here. We got the key in. As you can see, the lights are on. And we did crank it. It cranks. It has compression. We took a look inside, and everything looks actually fairly clean. We got a fresh battery on here, but it wasn't firing up, and so we decided to check. So we used there's a test in here actually. Under this diagnostic port, you can jump power to the fuel pump, and with that, the fuel pump should come on, but it didn't. So we used our multimeter and we checked with the wiring that is there, that black plug, and there we were getting 12 volts. So then we also tried applying 12 volts directly to the pump side to see if the pump would turn on. It didn't. So we are diagnosing this as a bad fuel pump. Now we're going to drop this fuel tank down and replace it with a replacement pump. Now we also want to make sure that it wasn't anything else. So we already did this, but we're just going to show you that the truck does run, it does fire up, and we're just going to spray some carb cleaner in here and crank it, and we'll be on our way. Okay, go ahead, crank it. Okay, there you can see here, it starts up, not very much, but you hear that it's getting, once it's got fuel, it will fire up. So it's not an ignition issue, it is a fuel issue, and it is because the pump is not firing up. So what we're going to do is going to get underneath that truck, drop that tank down, and get the new replacement pump in there. So there she is, our lovely blue monster truck. It's the first time actually I've seen it in the sunlight, because it's always been pouring rain or super dark by the time that we get out here to work on it last night. So this is the next day. I think we spent maybe a total of 1.5 hours on this thing. Once we get the fuel pump and fuel tank and everything else back in, we'll be sitting at probably 2.5, maybe 3 hours with the spark plugs and the fuel filter. And I really think that it will be done by then. Everything will be wrapped up, the truck will be started, and we'll be driving it around. Aside from all right, it's now the next morning. As you can see, we've removed the fuel pump and the screen out of the fuel tank. There's a fuel tank right there. It wasn't too bad. It was pretty easy. As you can see, we've upgraded from, we're moving up in the world. We've gone from working on Corvettes in a 4-bay, nicely lit shop to working on sand and gravel on a 30-something-year-old truck. Yeah, things are looking up. We're moving up in the world. So take a look at that. That doesn't look like that was supposed to be submerged, so someone used the wrong type of fuel line on there. They used some electrical tape to make sure there wasn't any shorting. I guess that's a nice touch. Okay, so this fuel pump is bad. The new fuel pump will go in this place. It'll come with a new fuel line that will connect to a rubber fuel line to connect from here to here, and then we'll have a new sort of pickup screen here to replace this one, because this is obviously not going to work. You see it's just full of junk, so that needs to go. The fuel tank, can't really tell from here, but it's got a bit of corrosion in there, as to be expected based on the way this tank, the pickup looks. So we're gonna throw a chain in there and throw some fuel, slosh it around, break everything loose, and then dispose of that fuel, and we can move forward with this. So I'm gonna take you inside and show you what the new parts look like. So to replace all those grungy, wrecked parts, we've got our new fuel pump right here. We've got our new filter, sock, screen, whatever you want to call it. It's going to go into the bottom right there where that yellow port is, and then you'll have our electrical terminals up here, and then our fuel outlet using this new rubber line that will connect up to the pickup, and that will send the fuel up to the engine. So part number on this one, Napa A0024S. And then we've got over here I'll tell you the part number on this. So this is the fuel pump, SP1129. This is a Spectra. Tried to find just a complete assembly, but it was not available. I was hoping that it would just be like a complete like sending unit and everything all together, but it didn't exist. And a Napa branded part number 23497 fuel filter. This is the one that goes underneath the intake area. So we'll need to replace this as well, based on the condition of what everything looked like in the fuel tank. And then of course, some new spark plugs for good measure. So these are the V-Powers BPR 5EYs, stock number 1233. And before these, they're not expensive, and these are the ones that the truck calls for. There we go. I've mocked up the fuel pump. It's wired up. I've got the connector connected in right there. The pickup is on, the screen is on, so it's ready to go in the tank. But before we do that, we want to do a little quick test. And yesterday, or last night, I mentioned in the video that there's a little way that we can jump this. And can you see my hand? Yeah, okay. I want you to listen for a noise. It's gonna be like a high-pitched whirring noise. Let's see here. Okay, what we're doing is we're taking this side that's in is for the fuel pump. There, can you hear that noise? Whee! Whee! There we go. So we know that the fuel pump is working. We fixed it. So the problem was the fuel pump for sure, because that test, otherwise that would have allowed the old fuel pump to power up by obviously jumping that bit. Now we've done this component. We're gonna focus our attention onto the fuel tank here. I'm gonna throw a chain in there, some fuel, shake this thing around, knock any of the corrosion or anything like that loose, dispose of any fuel that's in there. And also note that the fuel tank was reading empty when it wasn't really that empty. So I think maybe the float might be gone bad. I should have pulled that out last night too, but we're gonna pull that out now. Just take a look to make sure that the float is working. And then I'll clean this thing out and put everything back together, put that fuel filter in, and we should be ready to fire this up. All right, fuel tank is in, all buttoned up. Fuel filler hose in, not bolted up completely. And all the connectors are in. So on this side we're good. We put in some fresh gas. And what we did up here is we jumped this, like I showed you earlier in the video, to make sure that the pump is working. It's working. And we wanted to make sure that we had gotten any air or dirty fuel out of the line. So right here you can see it's wet. So we had removed these two bolts, removed the injector out, used the tester, jumped the pump, and then waited for fresh fuel, clean fuel to come out. We saw fuel coming out, so that's a good sign. That means that we don't have any other blockages in the system, and that our fuel pressure should be good. Tighten that back up, and now we're gonna go ahead and crank it. So wish us luck. Let's see how this goes. My trusty foot. Nothing. Okay, so we know we have fuel, and we had spark earlier, but we can check the spark plugs again to make sure that it wasn't anything that's an issue there. But back to the drawing board, but this thing is going to fire soon. I came up to the engine bay. I'm not sure if you can tell, but everything's a little wet up here. This is all wet. You see that? So then I used the tester again to see what was going on in the engine bay, and from right here it's spraying out fuel. So I must have messed something up, or something is missing from here. So I take a look to make sure if there's supposed to be an O-ring or something that goes in here as to why it's leaking it. Look, it's got this little metal piece in here with this much play. I don't even think this is supposed to be here. Normally you would have an O-ring and then possibly an O-ring between that bolt and the fuel line there as well. So I'm just going to take a look at the service manual and see what's supposed to be connected this way, and then if it's an O-ring we'll stick that in and we'll give it another shot. Okay, as you can see, the gap is now closed. What happened is that bolt there was actually loosened off. Someone must have loosened it out at some point to relieve the pressure in the fuel rail. I guess the incompetent husband strikes again. I don't know, we'll find out. Okay, let's give it another shot. Okay. Okay, it's starting to go. Okay, so it's firing up and it dies right away. I'm gonna give it a couple more shots here. Okay, you can see fuel is still misting out of there, so it still needs to be tightened up, or we need to replace that copper washer that's in between there. We had that truck sputtering a bit. I think we're going to have this fired very soon. Let me tighten this up. Okay. Short-lived, but it started, and I said that we were going to get it started in a few moments, and we were successful. I told y'all that we have this truck running in no time, so I think we spent more time today, but it's going in and out of the house total under 4 hours. That's including changing the spark plugs, pulling the fuel tank out, cleaning it out, putting a new fuel pump in, cleaning out the sending unit for a fuel gauge, replacing the fuel filter, which we did off camera afterwards, checking out the fuel lines, and we replaced the battery in there as well. Put the steering column in, even though it's not steering anything. And let's send that. There you have it. Running and driving. Headlights are even on, or parking lights are on, headlights are not on. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you all next time for some more fun with this new project.